Good evening, all you heavy metal heroes and heroines out there. My name is Alan, and it's that time yet again. Let's talk some metal. Pretty excited to do tonight's video because it's a topic that's been bouncing around in my head for quite a while, and it is finally time to record this one so that folks can check it out. The topic for tonight's video is madcap metal, and what I mean by this is bands that feel like maybe they were just a couple of Marshalls shy of a full stack, if you catch my drift. There are plenty of heavy metal bands out there that are, very tight, very focused, very on point sounding. And then there are some that definitely feel like a few of the screws were a little bit loose, whether it's just, crazy, insane, over the top vocals, really off the wall lyrics, or just, the entire concept is very, very weird start to finish. Some bands fall into those categories. These bands can be off-putting to some folks, and not every project like this, holds together very well. But some of these bands can actually turn out some excellent heavy tunes. And so we're going to look at 4 of those tonight. Going to be a little bit all over the board here, but some pretty cool, if wacky stuff to check out. And the first thing we're going to check out is a band from Portland, Oregon, who were known as XINR, is the way it's pronounced, although it's spelled XINR. I'm not sure how you get the pronunciation XINR from that spelling, but like I said, some things aren't going to quite add up with some of these bands tonight. Anyway, we're going to start off with a tune by XINR called All Hallows Eve. I want to start in the middle of this one. It's a slightly longer song, but you'll get the gist of it real quick. So here is a clip from All Hallows Eve by XINR.
All Hallows Eve and my candy might be late. Hallows Eve, lies begin to break. Sing off the shows, I found 2 days dead. I'm not after money, Kenny, I collect my hat. 6 feet under, you can't buy the town. And you die or digging up Warlord's Club. Hallows Eve, I'll be sickening, wrecking
All right, there is XINR crushing a crazy track called All Hallows Eve. Totally deranged vocal delivery on that one with really wacky lyrics, like some of the lines like, I'm not after the money, Kenny, I just collect the heads. Really, really crazy fella digging up graves with nasty thoughts in his head. Some things about XINR. This band did not get to put out much material back in the day. They recorded some material, but unfortunately, tragically, a couple of members were killed in a motorcycle accident in 1984, and that kind of brought the project to a screeching halt. To my knowledge, the only thing that came out back then was they did make it onto a compilation album. It's this one called Pacific Metal Project, which has different West Coast bands on it, and you can see the XINR logo is down there towards the bottom with a track called Ever Present Angel. Interestingly, XINR had a sort of Christian lineup to the band, that there was, it wasn't obviously going to be, preachy kind of Christian metal, as you heard on a track about guys digging up graves to take the heads and do things. But so there again is another weird disconnect. It's like, wait a minute, you guys are sort of consider yourselves a white metal band, but That's one of your songs? Weird stuff. Absolutely. But yeah, this was the only thing. And the compilation came out in 85, which was technically after the band, was already sort of being laid to rest. The CD that I've shown is called Beyond Woodward. It's a collection of material that was put out by Stormspell Records. This one's been out for quite a while. Let's see. Stormspell released this one in, let's go to the mothership and get it right, back around 2008. And last time I checked, I think they still have copies of this one available. It was not a very strong seller for the label, I don't believe, but I think the track Hallows Eve alone makes it worth the price of admission. And, there's plenty of good liner notes, lots of tracks on there, usual Stormspell quality when it comes to an anthology release. So yeah, XINR, what a weird band. It had potential, obviously could lay down some pretty heavy, crazy stuff. I never really got the chance to move on to bigger and better things. And what would they have done? Would they have cleaned up the vocals and gone for more of a Christian metal thing? Would they have just kept going with that sort of insane and deranged sound? Sadly, we will never know. Okay, next up, we've got, let's see, who are we going to do next? Oh, yes, this is a really cool album by a band I like quite a bit. We're switching down to Georgia for this one, though. And this is a band I've talked about some before called MX. My understanding is MX is a short military slang for missile, so I'm guessing it has something to do with that. Anyway, this band released a crazy album in 1986 called Rocks, misspelled in good 80s fashion. And before we talk about MX just a bit, let's check out one of the tracks here. This is going to be a cut called Riding on the Edge. I love the guitar opening to this one. They just slice and dice, really out of control, very crazy. Here we go with Riding on the Edge. All right, MX, scorching it on Riding on the Edge. This album is just full of those kinds of ripping leads, great guitar heroics, just all over the place. The songs have that very loose feeling like they could go off the rails at any second, but they keep it together. This band has a long recording history, and that's something I've noted about a couple of these bands that I'll talk about tonight. Even though they definitely feel like, this kind of mad science experiment, the experiment went on for quite a while. MX did not disappear after making that one album. They actually have released a string of albums back in the day. After the first one, they reportedly got pretty weird and sort of drifted out of the heavy metal sphere completely. They had album titles like Your Parents Are Aliens 2. There's another one that I noticed just stood out as really bonkers. Let's take a look. What was that? Gone Snipe Hunting as a title of an album from, that one was from 2001, and it was the last one they did for about 20 years. But I've noticed over here on Metal Archives that in the past couple of years, starting in 2020, they had an EP come out and then apparently 3 full-length albums. I don't know if that's all new material, if they're digging up stuff from the vaults. They even have one listed from 2021 called Appalachia Voodoo Factory. This is a band that's got a real quirky take on life, is all I can say. And again, I know at least some of those later albums were very much not metal screamers the way the original Rocks album was. So don't know what they're playing these days, but yeah, sooner or later we'll have to check that out. The band did get the anthology treatment during those years of downtime. The anthology is this kind of crazy superhero artwork on the cover, very fitting with their crazy themes. This was done on the OPM Records label, and you might be able to see it there, but it's on green vinyl. At least some of the copies were. And this has a lot of tracks from the first album, and then it has a few tracks from the next 2 or 3 albums. So you get a little bit of a sampling of some songs they did do on subsequent releases. And some of those are still pretty good. You can tell they were starting to, change direction at least a little bit, although they're still solid tracks and fit in well on this particular collection. So yeah, the original LP is one that's gotten kind of pricey, as a lot of those indie LPs from the 80s have. But yeah, really cool stuff, really crazy sounding stuff. Their music's always been a little hard to find online. I haven't checked for a while, but I know a while back when I was digging for more info on the band, you'd think with that many albums, you'd find a lot of stuff on YouTube and such, and I didn't really come across much. So maybe that has changed now that the band seems to be active and working on music once again. Don't know. Definitely kind of a crazy, unique outfit, but definitely that first Rocks LP, it does flat out rock, no doubt about it. Okay, time to move on to our third project of the night. And for this one, we're heading out to the Rust Belt in Detroit, Michigan for a band that went by the weird name of Red Machete. Red Machete had a pretty limited output, and we're going to check out a track from their first single called Pull the Rope. And that's also going to be the title of the song that we'll hear a little bit of. So let's check out Pull the Rope by Red Machete from Detroit, Rock City, Michigan.
As the sun dawns and a new light comes today, just grab your broken heart and watch as you slip away. So don't go, you don't know. You sell your soul, it's a rock and roll. You don't know, but he sold your soul. He puts you through temptation. Some people you gotta beware. When he grabs for the rope from his hands, your soul you must tear. So don't go, you don't know. You sell your soul, it's a rock and roll. You don't know, but he sold your soul. Pull the rope, coming up from the ground. Pull the rope, he's dragging you down. Pull the rope, it's a curse that you found. Pull the rope, breaking his bound.
All right, there's Red Machete going a little crazy on a track called Pull the Rope. And again, this is their first 7-inch single. I see different dates recorded for this one, depending on which website you look at. Let's see, I think Metal Archives has it listed as 1984 and Discogs has it listed as 1985. Maybe I've got those backwards, but we'll call it somewhere in the 1984, 1985 range. The band did have additional output. They made another single in 1986, and they made a cassette album around 1988. I don't think I've heard the second single, or if so, it's been so long that I don't remember it. The cassette album I've heard, I've got that on the hard drive, and it still has, sort of, that wacky off a little bit from center kind of delivery, although it's tightened up a little bit from what you just heard on Pull the Rope. The singles have always been tough ones to come across. As you saw, the picture sleeve on my copy is pretty beat. It's not in very good condition. It's also the only copy with a picture sleeve that I've ever come across that was for sale. So I was kind of like, well, I can pay a lot of money for a copy with no sleeve. I cannot own it. Or I can buy this copy with, a pretty beat up sleeve, but it does have the picture sleeve with it. And so that's where I stand. And I'm kind of glad I've got it, even though it's not in the best of shape. Red Machete would continue on well after the cassette album that came out in 1988, though, as well. They ended up changing their name to Madhouse and continued forward, releasing stuff up through at least 2013. So once again, this band didn't disappear into the woodwork. It's kind of interesting to me that some of these bands that have this, sort of real mad scientist mentality and this very wacky, vibe to their music, they don't give up. They really hang in there and keep putting stuff out. I don't know if they're just so packed with ideas that they just have to see it through, or if they're just so focused on their goal of conquering the world with their wild zany music that they don't care that it may not be gaining them huge fan bases and international acclaim. They just keep cranking it out because they love it and enjoy it, and if so, good for them. Absolutely. So that's a little bit about Detroit's Red Machete. Definitely one of those underground cult classics that has a pretty crazy off the wall sound to it. All right, we've got one left tonight, and I want to go back to the Pacific Northwest where this video began, but this time to the state of Washington for a band with the very odd name of Max Planck. Max Planck, of course, famous physicist. When you name your band after a famous physicist, you're pretty much telling folks right up front that this is going to be kind of weird, and weird it be. A little background before I play the clip, because the clip's not going to make sense without it. Max Planck did a demo called Kill the Pain. Their only vinyl appearance I can think of or am aware of is this one 7-inch single. It's a split single. The other side's by a band called Kill Decor, who was also on that same Pacific Northwest scene. They've also did some pretty cool stuff. But Max Planck, not only is the music pretty good, they have some just very wacky concepts that they worked out. The demo has been reissued so that you can actually hear it these days. This was another Storm Spell release. They did the full Kill the Pain demo on CD. And it also did get a vinyl treatment over on Buried by Time and Dust. And this comes with a big booklet and stuff, the usual high quality standards you associate with the Buried by Time and Dust label. Musically, these songs are all over the place. Some of them are fast, some are slower, some are kind of quiet and soft laid back, some are kind of raging and intense. So really just all over the board here. But I'm going to play clips from 2 tracks just to show you a little bit of variation. Let's see what we've got booted up here. The first one I want to do is a song called Predator Love. And I may jump into this one. I don't remember if it has a long intro to it or not, but if the sound jumps, I'm just getting past the intro stuff. So there's a little bit of Max Planck's very crazy Predator Love, weird vocal delivery. Definitely sounds a little bit on the deranged side, but works really, really cool. The next one I'm going to play a clip from, track 7, Star Scream. A little bit of an odd name for a track. Those of you who are children of the 80s, such as myself, will always, of course, associate the name Starscream with the Decepticon Transformer, the kind of, sniveling, cowardly jet fighter that always kind of wanted to take over the Decepticons, but, was always too much of a wimp to ever actually face down Megatron and challenge him directly for power. Now, that couldn't possibly have anything to do with a song by a heavy metal band, could it? Could it? Let's go to the tape. There you have a heavy metal band playing a song about the Transformer Starscream with the vocalist doing an eerily good impersonation of the voice used for the cartoon Starscream character from the Transformers cartoon of the mid-1980s. That's fucked up, man. That is just so fucked up. Couldn't believe that the first time I heard the song and started paying attention, just like, I'm pretty sure he just said something about Megatron. Oh my God, I know what's happening here. Really a perfect example of how some of these bands just had really off the wall concepts and we're not afraid to try them out. Again, today's world, heavy metal, you've got all kinds of weird influences and bands do all kinds of goofy things and nobody hardly bats an eyelash. 1986, yeah, this is pretty hardcore chains and leather. This is the year that's got Rain in Blood and stuff coming out, Master of Puppets, and you're going to take the stage and do a song about Starscream fighting Megatron. That takes some serious true metal street cred right there. That's what that takes. So yeah, Max Planck never had any other official release back in the day other than the one side of one 7-inch single. They didn't even get their own single. They only got one side of it. But it's really cool that the demo did see the light of day later on, thanks to Stormspell and Buried by Time of Dust. It's a really good listen. Again, every song's a little bit different on it, but these guys knew how to play. They wrote some cool tracks. It's a very, very fun album to listen to. So one I'd recommend picking up sometime if you want to. The original Max Planck 7-inch is a hard one to find and does get kind of expensive these days, but you should be able to find the Stormspell reissue without too much trouble whatsoever. Head on over to the Stormspell distro and see if they still have some copies in stock. You never know. Okay, that is the end of my list for tonight. So now let's talk madcap metal in the comments down below. What bands do you especially like that just have that X factor, that unhinged quality about their music that tells you that they're definitely coming at heavy metal and maybe life itself from a little bit of a different angle, but you love it nonetheless, despite their quirkiness, that they still really check all the boxes that get you fired up to enjoy their music. These are 4 that I enjoy quite a bit. Someday, there'll probably be another video featuring some more bands in this wacky, zany little corner of the heavy metal empire that I'm calling Madcap Heavy Metal. With that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Everybody, take care and keep banging your head, even to old Transformers episodes.